I show that we are at the top of the hour. So can everybody hear me? Awesome. Okay. I'm getting all yeses, so I will take that. All right. So welcome to this webinar, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to learn a little bit about growing your business with social media. Right. So I do want to do a special thanks to the Better Business Bureau, Calhoun Companies, and also James J. Hill Center, as well as Pineapple. I don't know if some of you work with Cassie and her crew on the back end, but they're amazing. So a little bit about us. So the National Institute for Social Media is the first organization to dedicate itself to social media education and certification. Our mission is to provide premier vendor-neutral public education and resources related to social media. So in addition, we have an industry advisory committee that defines and supports our certification as well as continuing education standards for social media professionals in a manner that upholds industry standards for competent practice. We have social media certification. So if you see anybody with an SMS abbreviation behind their name, they are a certified social media strategist. Also, we have certification prep training, and as well as continuing education classes, books, and tutoring. Also, a little bit about me. So little education background. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Communication with a business minor, locally from Minnesota at St. Catherine's University. I have a Master of Arts in Industrial and Organizational Psychology from Argosy University, as well as a Doctorate of Education in Org Leadership. I'm also a certified social media strategist, and so I also teach for the National Institute for Social Media. I also have some industrial and organizational, excuse me, hold on one second. I'm getting some feedback. All right, can you still hear me? Perfect, and my feedback is gone. Okay. Thank you for your patience with that. And then also a little bit more about me is that I'm passionate for individual and organizational development and education, psychological and learning diversity, because we are all different psychologically, as well as we also learn differently. I'm also passionate about leading with a positive influence, psychology in the workplace, and organizational health, but also on an individual level, making those connections, creating awareness, and having that dialogue. So also part of today is I want to create dialogue for you as well. Feel free to chat with each other in the chat area, as well as, answer each other's questions if you have them. I'm doing the presenting, but then also I'm not necessarily able to see all the chats that might be going on. So if you see something and you're able to answer a question for each other, perfect. I know a fair amount about some information, but I don't know everything. And so I also as part of my passion with dialogue, appreciate sharing information. All right, a little bit about our agenda today is definitely why to social. Looking at the benefits, branding, who's your audience, as well as looking at your content, the relationships that you create, having goals. We are going to look at some platforms today too, and also we're going to look at some tips and tools as well as some trends. All right, why is social media important? This graphic is great, but it also talks about social media from around the world. This is huge. This is global. We have a population of over 7.5 billion people. But if you look at the other end of the graphic, you see active social media users as well as mobile social media users are pushing half of all of those, all the population. So also 93% of online experiences begin with a search engine. This is why search engine optimization is really important, or if you've heard of it, SEO. When an individual does a search engine, say for example for your organization, and wants to look them up, what do they see? Have you ever Googled yourself or your organization? What pops up? Also, there's a huge opportunity because 81% of the entire US population has at least one social media profile. And if you look at some of the younger generations, that number jumps up to 90 to even 98%. So there's huge opportunity and growth there. All right, I wanted to include this graphic because it definitely speaks to Facebook and how Facebook is the most widely used online platform among US adults. Also, YouTube is starting to make a pretty great impression there as well, and there's starting to be additional research behind it. And also, this is from Pew Research Center, so if you haven't heard of them, they are a great opportunity to check out research within the social media realm. Also, remember I mentioned about some of those younger users? Snapchat and Instagram are definitely becoming way more popular among some of the younger people in the United States. If you look at the first two lines, you can see how Snapchat and Instagram have between 73 to 75% of those that are 18 to 24 years old. I also want you to notice some of the gaps between some of the age groups versus if you look at YouTube, there's a pretty close integration between some of the age groups. So there's a big opportunity there where younger users are using Snapchat and Instagram, but it's not there so much for some of the older users. Also, considering why is social important? Well, digital ad revenue is expected to surpass print ad revenue by the end of this year. So that's another great opportunity because when you're looking at marketing and PR in relation to your social media, you can look at how your digital ads can really reflect better on the digital and social realm. All right, so why should you care? There are 2.5 billion active mobile social accounts globally and 1 million new active mobile social users added every single day. Online adults 18 to 34 are more likely to follow a brand via social networking. And 71% of consumers who have had a good social media service experience with the brand are likely to recommend it to others. I want you to remember this too. This will pop up more in the presentation. As well as 96% of those people that discuss brands online do not follow those brand-owned profiles. I found this to be an interesting statistic that there's opportunity for growth there as well. But But then we have to look internally at our own organization. Marketers are prioritizing social platforms to invest in based on potential audience reach, cost of paid ads, potential for driving traffic, and lead generation. But also, I want you to look at some of the challenges that they are having. Are you having some of these challenges as well? Are you developing social strategies that support the business goals? Identifying and understanding your target audience. I definitely want to highlight those two in particular, and we'll go into more detail about those. So there are benefits to social media. There is social proof. It also drives people to your website if you have social media platforms. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it increases your SEO or search engine optimization. And it costs less than traditional marketing channels, but this may be a changing trend, and I'll talk more about that later. It creates opportunities for engagement so that you can engage with your customers. And you can also have the potential to reach a diverse audience. You can target your marketing and even remarketing efforts. Increase your customer loyalty. And a key part is humanizing your brand. So I'm actually going to play a little bit, and I'm going to ask some questions on a poll. So just initially, what is the size of your individual business? All right. We have people still answering, but it looks like we have quite a few smaller organizations here. So this is something to think about too when you're thinking about your social media strategy. What do you have opportunities for? And even two, I'm going to launch a second poll. What is your experience with social media? Well, we have a fair amount of large organizations because it is Small Business Week, and small does help all. What is our experience with social media? Very nice. We have a moderate amount of experience amongst everybody. There is some with little experience or a lot of experience, which is nice. It creates a diverse group here, which I appreciate. All right. So speaking about social media strategies versus tactics, this can get a little confusing in the realm of social media. Strategy is really the big picture, looking at the problem and looking at the overall forest rather than the individual trees. Tactics is a small picture and focusing on that individual tree. Strategic planning drives a natural action plan, which are the tactics that stem from identifying your preferred key performance indicators, your strategy. So why am I bringing this up? Because we also have to consider social objectives versus business objectives. So social media strategy is not and really should not be independent from the organizational strategy. They should be interdependent. There are some core questions that you can consider. What is your organization's mission, vision, and values? What are your current organizational strategic objectives? And how can social media best complement all those objectives. So your brand, understanding your business brand in relation to social media. Think about, who are your customers? Where are they? Where are they at on social media? Are they on certain platforms like Facebook, Twitter? Maybe more photo or video focused like Instagram or YouTube? What do you want others to know? Your awareness of your brand. And how can you best share that information in order to create lead generation? How do your customers want to engage with your brand? Do they want to have an excellent customer service experience? Or is it more about being rewarded for their loyalty to your brand? Do they want to create a community with you, but also those who use your product or your service? So do research, set goals, make a plan, execute, but then also be consistent. All right, your brand and using social. So why do consumers follow brands on social? They want to learn about products or services. But this is the one that I really appreciate. On social, people want to be entertained. Now, they also want to stay up to date on company news, learn about promotions, also connect with people that are similar to them, be inspired, educated, but also look at the other side of the graphic. Why consumers unfollow brands on social? Poor customer service, irrelevant content, too many ads and too many promotional posts. If they talk about politics or social issues, or if they ignore posts or mentions from other people, as well as if they use influencers to sell products. Now, there is essentially a sweet spot, if you will, about promotions and discounts, because as you can see on the left side, customers want to learn about promotions and discounts, but they will also unfollow if you're talking about yourself too much and having too many promos or too many ads. So this is kind of an interesting information for your followers. And again, this will vary from industry to industry, product to service. So this is overall broad looking at social media, but it's something for everyone to consider. And I want to say, are you not entertained? I had to throw in a little bit of Game of Thrones because I am a fan, but also people want to be entertained on social media. So this is one reason why memes are quite popular. Now your audience. Are you clear about who you are trying to reach? And hopefully not as clear as mud like this graphic may show. But also, I want you to consider, who are your customers? What segments in your industry are you targeting? What is your unique approach? Do you have, for example, low cost and high quality? Who is my customer? Consider creating a customer profile. Who are they? What are they about? What are their likes, their dislikes, their interests? And how can you use that information to reach them online? Try to put yourself in their position. What are they seeing, hearing, wanting, needing? One way to do that is through social listening. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but it's a common way to listen to hear what your customers are saying online. And also a great way to look at your competition and other industry leaders. As an example of customer profiling, I'm a fan locally of on the local Fox network, there's a show called The Jason's Show. And Jason is the host of the show. He promotes local small businesses on his show. Sometimes they come onto the show, and even some constituents of mine have been on the show, which got me watching to support my constituents. But also, he has his customer profile down to a T. He mentions Betty from Anoka. He wants to appeal. He not only has a name and a location for his customer profile, Betty from Anoka, but he's got it down to age, demographics, and all that other information. So the question that I have for you is, and you can share in the chat if you will, do you have a Betty from Anoka? And also in a sidebar, you can have multiple customer profiles. I also want to touch on social listening. One way you can do this is you can set up alerts. You can do it through, like, even as an example, Google Alerts. And so if anything pops up on the web that has those keywords, as an example, I've done it in the past doing organizational communications, and I've put in my organization's name and also a few other keywords. Therefore, if anything pops up that has those keywords or my organization's name, I'm going to get an email notification about that. So alerts are a really great way for social listening. But also respond. Respond to information that might be out there. React to it. Add to the conversation and the content, as well as collect data. Look at what's out there. Collect that information. See if you find trends or things that are going on. It's really informing to know when you're listening out there, and you can see how things kind of shift or might change. All right, Anita does say, yes, I do have a Betty from Anoka, but do not know how to best include her in my media. We might touch on that a little bit later, but also if any of you have insights that you want to share, feel free to do so. So even to dig down deeper into Betty from Anoka, are you clear about who you are trying to reach? Get down to the age, location, even their income level, their education level, their career, but also look at their interest. What are they liking? What are they wanting? Some of that information is great to find out because then you can adjust. You can learn about what your customers are really thinking. Then you can learn their perceptions of your brands and what they have been and what they might be in the future and what you want them to be. Understand what they are looking for and what you can do to answer their needs. This can also lead to new services, new products that you might not have thought about. Brand actions on social that prompt consumer purchases. Number 1, being responsive. I mentioned this in social listening, to be able to respond to people, but also respond to them promptly. Even as an example on Twitter, when people reach out to brands on Twitter, they expect a response within 24 hours. So the quicker you respond, the better reaction you'll get, but also create a positive experience. Don't just respond to respond, and don't just make posts to make posts. Look at the quality that you're posting as well as the quantity. Also, going back to why people follow or unfollow brands, look at those offering promotions and providing educational content. If you add to the conversation, people might be more willing to follow you, to interact with your brand online. And don't forget, sharing interesting visuals as well as being funny are important too. Part of that is content. Aligning your content with your business objectives, but also looking at your competitors and that landscape too. But you also, it's a balancing act because you also have to evaluate your internal resources. What are you able to do? What do you have the funds and the money to do? And even looking at creating a content team structure if you have a team. Considering content, there's new or also created content versus curated content. So curated is developed by others so that you can use it to add to your online presence. And there's often a link to a third-party website, while new or created content is self-promotion and links back to your website. Now, there's a sweet spot in a way, if you will, for this as well, because you can use the analogy of if you meet someone new, are you going to like them if they're talking a lot about themselves? Are you going to be drawn to them if they're talking about their promotions and what they have going on? Maybe not so much. So rather, be part of the conversation and share relevant or related information, but it's not specific to your own product or your own services. There is a number that is mentioned out there. So if you're new to social media marketing, 40% content creation rate is a good place to start. But make sure that you measure your own efforts and find out what works best for you and your business and your company. But also beware of when you're curating content of copyright, Creative Commons, and other infringements that can happen. Give credit where credit is due. If it's not your content, don't claim it as it is. Also, I teach and instruct some classes too, and I can relate this back to citing sources, if you will, back in the days of college, where if you don't mention where the content is coming from, it appears to be your own. And that's also gotten some people in trouble on social media because they don't give the credit. They just put it out there and don't say who it's from, but it looks to be new and original to them when it might not be. Also look at branded versus common interest content. You create what is driving people back to your product or services. That's branded. But there's also common interest, which is information that you have found helpful and you share within your industry. This could be research, hashtags, Facebook groups, or even participating in Twitter chats. One example of this is I think of locally in Minnesota, we have Care 11 TV, the NBC network locally, and they have a segment that's been called Grow with Care. And so they seem to find a need on social media, and they created a Facebook group back last fall in October. It is a little bit branded, but I also want to draw you to the common interest content that they created. They created a Facebook group where individuals post questions to the group, but then also people within the group answer each other's questions, whether it's, about any kind of gardening tips, things like that. And so they have over 15,000 members in this group, and they just started it back in last October. So consider asking what you can do with your content. Oh, interesting. Cassie mentions Care also does a cooking show on Facebook Live every Thursday morning. How interesting. Oh, and Susan mentions attribution alone does not protect you from copyright violations. Very nice with photos. Yes, photos are very tricky. Thank you for bringing that up, Susan. And this goes back to reasons people unfollow brands on social media. If you have too much self-promotion out there, remember that number, but don't follow it exactly. There's a 40% opportunity there, but it does depend on your brand, your industry. And even consider that more so 71% of individuals are more likely to follow a brand after a positive social experience. All right, another great graphic. Social posts that encourage consumer likes and shares. So going back to, are you entertained? Posts that entertain are more likely to be shared and liked as well. Also, posts that inspire, posts that teach, posts that tell a story. Interestingly, there was a trend a few years ago, two ago, about storytelling, but it doesn't seem to be one that is liked as much or shared as much. But then also look at discounts or sales, self-promotion. They are likely to be shared, but not nearly as much as those that entertain and inspire. So actions that consumers take when they follow brands on social. They're more likely to visit your website or your app. They're more likely to visit your actual physical store. They're more likely to talk about your brand with friends and family and recommend it and buy that brand over another and to draw inspiration from that brand. But also pay attention to the other side of the graphic where consumers reach out to brands on social. They reach out if they've had a great experience, or particularly if they have a question about a product or service. But then there's the opposite end of the pendulum, where if they've had a bad experience, they're also going to reach out too. And the great part of creating community and engagement is if they have a suggestion or idea, they're willing to reach out to your brand. Thinking about relationships. Social media is also about community management, being mindful and really intentional about what you're putting out there. Looking at having a voice and a persona. Consider having a brand representative. Because if you have, as an example, if there are multiple people representing your brand on social or different aspects, it could show up in different voices or different personas. So if that is part of your brand, you can represent that by saying that this response is from Jim, or this is from Tamra, and then create that individual voice within that organizational voice and brand. Add value to each individual engagement. There's a reason why people are engaging with your brand out there, so be respectful of that and respect those that you're engaging with. If something negative happens, definitely take accountability for your actions and under promise, but over deliver. This is just part of customer service. Looking at answering customer questions, having a quick response time whenever possible, and even responding if you don't know the answer to a question, responding as such and being honest with it, but then saying, I'll get back to you on that. Communicate how they want to communicate. And this is about your customer. Communicate with them how they want to be communicated with. And let others see that you're responsive. Oftentimes, with some management that I've done, I say praise in public and discipline in private. And so praising in public, letting it out there to let others see that you are responsive and responding, but then also if somebody has a complaint or an issue, see if you can take it offline and have a more one-to-one conversation. Now, selecting the platforms. I'm going to bump out another poll here. About which platform do you want to learn the most about? All right, we got a little bit of everything here. And so feel free, if you haven't done so yet, to respond. We have a little Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So selecting the right platform does depend on your content, your product, your service, but also where is your audience? Doing some of that social listening to find out where they're at. And definitely try and seek out dominant platforms in your industry and perform a social media competitive analysis. Understand the functionality of the platforms though too. If your competitors, for example, are out on Facebook, but you might not be so familiar with that platform, get familiar with it, or maybe look at some other areas that your audience might be in. Would they be in LinkedIn or Instagram? And these are just a few example platforms that are out there, and some that you may have considered and some that you may not. The most common one is number 2, the social networks like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But also remember that there are blogs and microblogs like WordPress, Tumblr, and Medium. There's media sharing platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat. Discussion forums like Reddit, Quora, and Dig, as well as bookmarking and content curation networks like Pinterest or Flipboard. And some of you that are in the service industry might be familiar with consumer reviews like Yelp or TripAdvisor. And there are many more options out there too. These are just a few examples. Some of the platforms we are going to address today too are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and we're going to touch on Snapchat. So Facebook. Facebook is the largest social media platform that's out there. They kind of dominate the area. So you're pretty likely to find your audience there, and it could be a good starting area. It does have 68% of adult social media users. It is fairly cheap to advertise on it, and it's quite a commonplace, if you will. A lot of age groups and different demographics are out there. And they do have multimedia options. They have stories and videos, as well as what else am I trying to think of? But they have multimedia versions out there. You can post pictures. You can just post an status update. There are multiple options. And they do have a broad spectrum of income levels, as well as education levels, as well as urban, suburban, and rural locations within their audience. So Facebook users also visit the site daily more often than any other social media platform. Roughly 3/4 of them visit on a daily basis, if not several times a day. So this is really good information if your audience is out there daily or even multiple times a day. Some general tips about Facebook is if you have a business page, getting a very responsive to messages badge is important. And the requirements of that are in the past 7 days, your page must have had a response rate of 90% and a response time of 15 minutes. It's pretty impressive. Now, there's a recommendation to post 3 to 10 times a week, but also experiment within your industry, what your competitors are doing, what your audience is responding to. Track mentions and respond appropriately, and also focus on getting targeted likes, like getting likes, shares, and comments. And also, these are some general Facebook tools that you can use. There is Facebook for Business, Facebook Ads. This is an interesting one that even some of our SMS professionals are not familiar with, that Facebook Blueprints. which is an e-learning tool for Facebook advertising. There's also Facebook Insights that give you analytics, and you can learn about your reach and your engagement. And Facebook has started into the workplace and team collaboration realm too. All right, Twitter. Twitter does tend to lean a little bit younger, and it is definitely more location diverse. I don't know if any of you are on Twitter, but even myself being on Twitter, I have had more followers from other countries and other areas that are phenomenal in relation to other social media platforms that I've used. So it's definitely more location diverse. It lends itself to also quick bursts of content. Remember the content amount? I believe I'm having a memory lapse at the moment. I think it's 240. No, 280. It was 140. Now it's 280 for character limits. So that has also been a site that many go to for quick bursts of content and just getting updated on their news. People tend to go there for news as well. But it's also a great listening tool to check out. And so just do some social listening on Twitter and see what the trends are in your industry. And you might learn a little bit about your competition there as well. And close to half of Twitter users visit the site at least daily. So that's another good number to consider. About half of them reach out on Twitter daily and check the sites, whether it's for news or whether it's for information. And also, if any of you heard recently, late last month, there was a study that was released by Pew Research that talked about how a vast majority of the tweets out there are dominated by the top 10% of tweeters. And so getting to know the influencers that might be out there might be beneficial for you. So while 22% of US adults use Twitter, the bottom 90% of tweeters tweet 20% of the tweets out there. So it's kind of an interesting correlation to look at. So some tips for Twitter. Post often and engage to stay in people's news feeds. This is quite common because people are there for quick bursts of information. So posting shorter posts more often creates more engagement there. Find out what the influencers and the experts are in your target areas and try to interact with them. Remember that 80% number that goes out there by the 10% of the tweeters. Look at participating in Twitter chats and increase your account's activity and your brand awareness. You can even look at using hashtags that are used within your industry. I just threw in a couple examples here that are pretty generic, but Motivation Monday, Wednesday Wisdom, Throwback Thursday, and even Friday Follow are some generic hashtags that you can consider. Track the mentions where you're mentioned on Twitter and respond appropriately. I know I have a constituent that usually tweets me about the Friday Follow, and I definitely try and respond very quickly and then link with everybody else that he's put in the Friday Follow hashtag with me. Also look at retweeting some of that information that's out there too. That's sharing in the conversation, sharing the knowledge that's out there. But also don't be afraid to ask for some Twitter love and tweet out there that you appreciate others, and then you'll get appreciation back. Some tools for Twitter are TweetDeck is very handy for if you participate in Twitter chats and trying to stay current with the hashtag that might be used in that Twitter chat. There's also Twitter Business as well as Twitter Ads, a business blog, and then analytics within Twitter. Now looking at LinkedIn, this is very common for professional networking and job searchers. It's very common also for business, B2B, business to business, as well as hiring, recruiting. Half of those on LinkedIn have a college degree, and a majority make more than $75,000 per year. It's also more common to see those on LinkedIn in urban and suburban areas. Some tips for LinkedIn. LinkedIn does announce annually their top 10 company pages. So maybe look at some of those and see if they're in your industry or related to some of your information in your business. And you can take some tips from what some of those company pages have. Add your industry keywords. This is another new thing where LinkedIn is bringing in hashtags. And so look at your industry keywords and improve your visibility in searches by using some of those hashtags as well. Post at least once, but ideally a few times a week with content that will bring people to your company page. And this will also keep your page relevant and top of mind. And like many of the social networks, engagement breeds engagement. So stay on top of those notifications, the comments, and then respond appropriately. Some tools on LinkedIn is LinkedIn. They have a Pages playbook. They have LinkedIn for small business, as well as LinkedIn learning tutorials. Another great platform is Instagram. This is definitely a more visual platform. And interestingly, now it leans a little bit more towards men. Previously, it was related more to women. It does have a younger audience, as you can see in the age categories there. But it is great, again, for visual products. And they are coming out, they do have Instagram stories, so it's becoming multimedia as well. So some tips is to optimize your bio with branded hashtags. Again, hashtags are becoming a trend, not just in Twitter, but now they've carried over to the other social platforms as well. And encourage tagging and sharing. But also don't forget about stories. Make sure you're adding stories to your business Instagram page. Produce more video content. That's becoming more of a trend as well nowadays. And have a call to action in your caption. And with hashtags on Instagram, less is more. Also consider regramming or reposting from your fans and your followers. And some tools with Instagram. There is Instagram feed, as well as other applications that you can integrate called Later and Repost. And Boomerang is a fun video tool that you can use. It uses about a second or two of video, and then it plays it back and forth and back and forth, if you've seen any of that on any of other social platforms too. For photos, VSCO is common, as well as Canva and Photoshop Express. And now there's becoming more information on shopping on Instagram. So this could be more for some of those that have products that you might want to use for shopping. Pinterest is great as well. It's highly visual, similar to Instagram, and 61% of pinners make a purchase after seeing a product there, which is great information for businesses. It does lean a bit more towards women, and it does have a younger audience with more college experience. It's great for visual products, ideas, and also resharing. I'm sure a few of us have, even on a personal level, pinned a few things for home remodeling or products that they're interested in. Definitely a good tool for that. So on a business perspective with Pinterest and some tips, look at revamping your pins and looking at what did well in the past year, for example, last year in 2018. Create new boards that keeps you at top of mind, and link to other socials platforms that you have for your business, like Etsy, Instagram, YouTube that you might have. And again, this is another platform where hashtags are very good to use. So some tools on Pinterest, you can use Viral Woot, which is formerly Pinwoot, and you can schedule follower information, and you can pin alerts. There's also Pin Groupie that sorts boards by popularity and what people are following in your information. There's pin alerts where you can get email notifications when someone pins something from your website or even from a competitor's website. And Loop 88, it connects Pinterest influencers with brands and advertisers. So if there is an influencer that you want to get connected with, you can use Loop 88. All right, YouTube. Interestingly enough, it's becoming a newer thing and a trendy thing that it's not been researched in the past. So I had to find some random information from Omnicore Agency. And so just a little bit about the demographics. Obviously, YouTube is video content. It does lean a bit more towards men and is younger audiences as well as older audiences. Even as a personal example, my teenage niece and nephew watch YouTube all the time, and so do my parents and some older friends that I have for tutorials, how to do things. So there's even an interesting gap in kind of that middle ages, if you will, for groups and demographics. So some tips on YouTube: have continuous content. And again, also have a call to action here. Put thought into your titles, your categories, and tags and descriptions that you're putting on some of your videos, and customize your channel. And also consider collaborating with others. This is kind of also a trendy thing where different YouTube people are collaborating with each other and bouncing off of that. So that's also great. Some tools for YouTube. There's video editors. You can also create a channel trailer. Google Small Business on YouTube, because Google does own YouTube. And YouTube Reputation Tool. And last but not least, we can't go on without talking about Snapchat. I think Snapchat is an interesting social platform, and it's becoming very trendy, particularly with the younger age group. It has a very young audience there, and 186 million daily active users. So it has a strength and an appeal because it entices users to visit the site, the platform, multiple times a day. And they have a bunch of fun games and things like that get you to visit, as well as you can create streaks with friends or anybody else that's out there too. So from a business perspective, I wouldn't undermine Snapchat because I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and it's becoming very popular with the younger generations that will be coming more into purchasing ages and things like that. So some tips for Snapchat: be in real time and show the real you. Also tell stories. Snapchat, Instagram are all owned by Facebook, and so Facebook is kind of dominating that sector of social media, and so they have stories on all of those platforms. Use and share Snapchat codes, but also create a sense of urgency. Some tools for Snapchat: they have ads as well as Snaplytics, which are analytics and publishing. They have Story Heap in order to manage your story. Pepper Filter, which creates geofilters. And Fast Story. It customizes your story and puts a brand on it. And then some more social media, some general tools that you can use. There are schedulers out there like Hootsuite and Buffer. There are also audience and follower analysis tools like Crowdfire or SocialRank. And play with design tools like Canva. That's for creating graphics like a graphic designer. Even on some platforms like Twitter, visual content is more than 40 times more likely to get shared on social media than any other types of content. Create marketing and editorial calendars with things like co-schedule, because nothing motivates an individual better than a deadline. And use business dashboards like Sife, that you can measure what matters. But also, as a business, as an organization, you need to look at your resources. What kind of time do you have? What kind of physical technologies do you have? Computer, tablet, phone? Do you need cameras? Do you need videography equipment? Consider your human capital as well. And you might need project management software in order to distribute roles among your team. Multimedia devices for content creation. Even social media management tools for scheduling posts and things. And don't forget about CRM, customer relationship management tools. And vendors, maybe outsourcing social media and helping you with that aspect for your business. So all in all, why is all of this important? Because marketers have found that they're struggling to create social media strategies that support overall business goals. But consumers want to be more engaged as well as being entertained before they buy products. Marketers need to dig deeper in order to understand their audience because they're struggling with trying to figure out who their audience is. Facebook just continues to dominate the social media realm. And brands are really only scratching the surface of what social media can do. And I want to leave you also too with some trends for 2019 and the upcoming year. Brands are looking at getting human and rebuilding trust because of all the fake news and the fake accounts that are out there on social media. And also they want less bots. They want storifying social is a trend as well, creating stories to surpass feeds, as well as the primary way that people are sharing information with their friends this year. And closing the ads gap. While I mentioned earlier that digital ads and marketing might surpass print ads information, it's also becoming a pay-to-play kind of area. There used to be more free opportunities out there, but now they're becoming a little bit more of paid opportunities out there. So trying to close that pay-to-play era. Cracking the commerce code, improving technologies that fuel shopping sales. Instagram is a perfect example of this, with having their Instagram shopping, as well as Facebook with their marketplace. People are shopping within social media now and not leaving the apps. And messaging eats the world. There's a drive for more and better one-to-one social experiences, and businesses are responding, and they're implementing messaging apps. People want to have those one-to-one experiences because they're more likely to promote and support those brands when they have a positive experience. And also, I wanted to mention research, of course, by Facebook, but they did research that found that 69% of respondents to their surveys said that directly messaging with a company helped them to feel more confident about that brand. So that's great information to check out too, and looking at one-to-one social experiences. And also, 63% of practitioners say social listening will become more important in the coming year. And so that's a great trend to look at too. Are you listening out there on social to what your customers and your audience are saying? Are you listening to what your competition is saying? And we do have contact information for the National Institute for Social Media. And we do have social media professionals that you can reach out to. So definitely feel free to contact the National Institute for Social Media and get some qualified professionals to help you work with your particular needs. What questions do you have? I did see some chatting going on in the chat room. Let's see if I can backtrack a little bit. Anita asks, do you just consult with strategy to set up social media, or do you implement the SEO by taking the content provided by the business and posting it? Oh, and look, we have some actual conversation with Rebecca saying that they do both consulting and management. Oh, great conversation going out there. Ooh, Mark asks, what is the best length of time for a video? That's a great question. Can I ask some clarifying questions back to Mark? Are you looking at YouTube? Are you looking at other video, like for example, in Facebook? Or like, for example, with stories, I was thinking of. Oh, in general. So for example, with stories, that can definitely be a shorter length. And you want to look at what your audience is wanting. If the video is too long, they're going to disengage. However, if you're out on YouTube, you might have a longer video and you'll get more engagements and more responses and posts. Oh, interesting. Rebecca mentions IGTV is another video channel that's gaining popularity. I'm going to have to check that out. It seems deja vu familiar, but definitely another good opportunity. Hmm. 10 minutes or 23 minutes? I think even less, especially for stories. If anybody else, yeah, I was going to say, if anybody else wants to chime in too, 2 to 3 minutes was a great response. I was thinking less than 5. And that's if you're looking at stories. Ooh, yeah, Rebecca mentions that Instagram stories are probably under a minute. And Cassie mentions that Twitter only allows videos of 2 minutes or less. Very valid point, Anita. Attention span is difficult to maintain after 2. I think it does depend on the platform that you're on too. For example, with Twitter, I mean, it looks like they've maxed out at 2 because that attention span of those users are usually shorter. Mark, great question. Is there a particular time of day for social media? I'm assuming you're meaning for posting. And that does vary a bit from platform to platform, as well as from industry to industry. And I could even refer out, there was a website through Sprout Social that drilled down into very, very specific times of days for each platform, but then also within each platform, different industries. Like, for example, the IT industry versus business professional industries. And overall, I was looking at that as a refresher for this webinar. Overall, I found an interesting trend of Wednesdays, anywhere from mid to late morning to early afternoon. So as you're out there on social media today, definitely might be a great opportunity. All right, just looking through some of the comments that popped up here. Ooh, another great question, Mark. What percent of ad dollars should be spent on social media? And honestly, I will say it depends. It kind of depends on your organization and your industry standards too, as well as how many platforms you might be on. Um, what is your industry, Mark, if I can ask? All right. That is an interesting industry, Mark. I have never heard of that, and I don't want to mispronounce it. So I will be honest. I will might have to look into that and get back to you. Very nice. Very nice. And even looking at where are your competitors at? I'm very curious in that now. All right. Are there any other questions out there? All right. Seeing none, we will close this out and get you back to your day. I do want to thank you for taking your time today and learning a little bit about social media. Please reach out and let us know if you have any questions or any suggestions as well. But then also look at this is the new normal for business building is incorporating social media into your business strategies and that they should complement each other. So definitely take that into consideration and have a great day. Thank you all so much. Referring back to content or contact info, I'll go back to that slide. All right, I'm going to log off and have a great day, everyone.